Feeling panicked when the three strangers arrived, Tandy only heightened everyone's anxiety by claiming that the newcomers were armed and heading towards them. Consequently, everyone scattered, trying to save themselves, but Carol instead went to rescue Melissa, who was being restrained. Rather than fleeing, Melissa grabbed a weapon, intending to confront the strangers, while the others hurried to the car to escape. Their plan to drive away failed when Todd lost the car keys, forcing them to hide inside the house. When the three mysterious people arrived and began searching the house, Todd finally found the car keys and attempted to retrieve them. However, when he touched a plastic doll attached to the keys, the doll made a noise, revealing Todd's location to the strangers and startling him. Realizing Todd's presence, everyone rushed out and confronted the three strangers, with Melissa wielding a shotgun and threatening to shoot if they made any wrong moves. True to her word, when one of the strangers moved, Melissa shot him. The injured stranger then revealed that they had no intention of shooting anyone and had come in peace. Shortly afterward, Daryl, the wounded stranger, succumbed to his injuries, as confirmed by his companion, Lewis. The three strangers turned out to be extremely cautious about the virus, which explained their protective gear. Now, only Lewis and Pat Brown remained, the latter previously known for traveling with Mike. After burying their fallen companion, Lewis and Pat asked for permission to stay temporarily in Malibu. Initially, everyone refused, but Tandy convinced them to reconsider, pointing out that the two men were harmless and that they had killed one of their own. Eventually, they agreed to provide shelter, and Tandy introduced them to their new home. During the tour, Pat abruptly stopped Lewis, hinting that this was a good beginning for them, suggesting they had a sinister plan against the Tucson family. Despite this, Tandy and Pat grew closer, engaging in activities that strengthened their friendship, such as crafting fake eyebrows for Tandy. When Tandy showed off Pat's creation, Gail and Erica found the eyebrows odd, which angered Pat as he felt unappreciated. Tandy, however, managed to calm him down. Suspicious of Pat's behavior, everyone except Tandy questioned Lewis about Pat's true nature. Initially, Lewis described Pat as a special, kind person, but under pressure, he confessed that Pat was actually a deranged individual who terrorized others. He recounted how Pat had once shown him corpses of virus victims, revealing that Melissa had mistakenly shot the wrong person. While the group learned about Pat's true nature, Tandy and Pat were bonding over setting a pier on fire and launching rockets, reminiscing about their shared connection with Mike. Upon returning home, Tandy was warned by the others to distance himself from Pat and isolate him. Just as they voiced their concerns, Pat arrived without his protective gear to thank everyone for accepting him. As a token of gratitude, he presented Gail with painted jeans. Approaching Gail, Pat noticed a photo of Mike with Tandy and felt deceived. He then drew a gun, pointing it at everyone, especially Tandy, and asked, "Head or heart?" Paralyzed with fear, Tandy didn't respond. When Pat attempted to shoot, his gun malfunctioned. Seizing the opportunity, everyone piled into the car to flee, but Pat, after reloading, blocked their path. Fortunately, he was too late, and the car rammed into him as they made their escape. After hitting Pat with the car, the group quickly searched for a new place to hide. Lewis mentioned that they should hope Pat was dead because if he survived, he would definitely come after them. To confirm whether Pat was dead or alive, Tandy decided to return to Malibu to check on him. While hiding from Pat, Tandy discovered Pat lying on the ground. When Tandy checked Pat's condition, he found that Pat was indeed dead, so he buried him properly. The next day, Tandy announced what he had found the previous night. Pat had been declared dead. This news relieved everyone, as they were free from the threat, except for Todd, who cried because he couldn't believe he had killed someone. To alleviate Todd's guilt, Tandy lied, saying Pat was still alive, but claimed he had said Pat was dead only to keep everyone safe. Upon hearing Tandy's words, Todd stopped crying and no longer felt guilty. The two then returned to Malibu to determine whether Pat was truly alive or not. Upon arrival, they found several writings by Pat, most of which were threats. They also discovered incense lit by Pat and jeans recently painted by him. They then announced to everyone that Pat was still alive but had left, making them feel safe enough to return to Malibu. However, Tandy privately told Carol that Pat was indeed dead. He lied to prevent Todd from feeling guilty about killing Pat. To prevent his lie from being exposed, Tandy and Carol devised a plan. Carol gathered everyone while Tandy staged a dramatic reenactment of killing Pat using a foam dummy. Carol narrated a story about Tandy killing Pat brutally. After the performance, Tandy hoped everyone believed that he, not Todd, had killed Pat. However, their plan failed when Lewis discovered the ruse and demanded the truth from Tandy. Confused, Tandy reluctantly admitted that Pat was dead and that he had seen it with his own eyes. Hearing Tandy's explanation, Todd again felt guilty about hitting and killing Pat. This time, Tandy comforted Todd, telling him he was a hero for saving everyone from the threat. Tandy hugged Todd, and everyone followed suit. Feeling safe again, they decided to return to Malibu. Upon arrival, Carol asked Tandy how he disposed of Pat's body. Realizing he hadn't done so, Tandy quickly went to the spot where he had buried Pat, only to find the body missing. As they were puzzled by Pat's missing body, Carol discovered a trail of blood leading toward the beach. She believed it belonged to Pat. They went to the beach and began to suspect that Pat had managed to escape. However, Todd was worried that if Pat returned to Malibu, he might bring new weapons to target them. Due to concerns about Pat's possible return, Tandy created an alarm that would automatically activate if Pat passed by. He tested the alarm on Carol, and it worked well. Meanwhile, Melissa built a barricade out of sand piles to use as a shelter in case Pat returned. However, the barricade startled several people, including Lewis, who was suddenly held at gunpoint by Melissa. Melissa explained that the barricade was for her protection and to help her anticipate Pat's movements. She demonstrated its use with Erica, who walked past her barricade. That evening, during dinner, Tandy demonstrated how they should fight Pat if he returned. He asked Lewis to volunteer, and Lewis pretended to be Pat attacking him. However, when Lewis approached, Tandy activated a stun gun, paralyzing Lewis. After the demonstration, Tandy and Carol returned to their room, where Carol showed him a cloak they could use for disguising themselves to avoid Pat. Tandy praised Carol's good idea, but worried that Lewis might be angry with him for the stun gun incident. Carol suggested that if Tandy didn't want to upset Lewis, he should approach him and ask to be friends. As everyone was about to sleep, they suddenly heard the alarm and gathered to find out who triggered it. When Melissa was ready, they discovered that it was Carol, who felt nauseous. The next day, Tandy implemented Carol's idea and approached Lewis to be friends. They met at the beach, where Tandy began with small talk and told a story about a lion and a mouse. After some time, Tandy asked Lewis to be his friend. Lewis agreed without mentioning the previous night's incident. Once Lewis agreed to be friends, they played catch. However, when Tandy threw the ball too far, it triggered a landmine Melissa had set up. Melissa explained that she had placed several landmines to detect Pat if he returned. That night, as everyone was about to sleep, the alarm went off again, followed by gunshots, causing panic. There was no one at the alarm, which made everyone more anxious, fearing for their lives. Lewis calmed everyone, explaining that the alarm was triggered by the tide, which set off a landmine, causing the car alarm to go off and, in turn, the house alarm. He assured everyone there was no immediate danger. Not wanting to live in constant fear of Pat, Lewis decided to leave Malibu the next day, and everyone agreed to follow him. Tandy reluctantly agreed to leave the house filled with memories. Before leaving, everyone said goodbye to their cherished items. Tandy bid farewell to his alarm, Carol to her paintings, and Gail to a doll she had dressed up to look like Gordon. Once they were ready, they got into their cars and left, uncertain of their next destination. After a long journey, Tandy Miller and his companions appeared happy, except for Gail, who had fallen asleep in her self-driving car. When she woke up, her car had stopped at a gas station because Lewis's car had broken down. Gail got out, forgetting to disable the autopilot, causing her car to drive off on its own. The men attempted to repair Lewis's car, but none were as skilled as Phil. Unable to fix it, they decided to abandon the car. That night, they rested at the gas station, eating the remaining supplies and deciding their next destination. Gail suggested San Francisco, and with Lewis's support, they agreed to go there. Everyone was excited about San Francisco, especially with Tandy making the journey lively. However, when they arrived, they found the city completely burned down. The scene shifted to 2 years earlier, revealing that the fire was caused by Tandy's antics. With San Francisco uninhabitable, they set off again into the unknown. During the journey, Erica and Carol argued about using the air conditioning. Eventually, Erica relented and let Carol use it. Suddenly, their car broke down with smoke billowing from the hood. They decided to abandon the car, and Tandy suggested everyone hitch a ride with someone else. Everyone piled into Todd's car, but it too broke down shortly after. They continued their journey on a city bus driven by Tandy. Tandy tried to cheer everyone up by singing, but it only annoyed them. Then, disaster struck again when the bus ran out of gas because Tandy forgot to refuel it. With no other vehicle available, they had to walk. As they walked, they saw Gail's car still driving aimlessly. They continued their journey until Lewis found a hardware store that could serve as a temporary shelter. That night, they voted on their next destination. One vote for Tampa, one for Vancouver, and one for Portland, which Lewis thought would have plenty of food supplies. Frustrated with the constant debates, Gail decided to head to Napa alone. Todd tried to stop her, not wanting her to leave. As Gail was about to go, they saw Melissa standing on a haystack. Melissa urged Todd to climb up and see what she had found. When Todd climbed up, he shouted for everyone to join him. To their amazement, they saw a large office building with lights on. They decided to approach the building and try to enter. As soon as they stepped in front of the entrance, they felt the cool air conditioning. They began to explore, taking the elevator up and searching for a suitable place to stay. Upon exiting the elevator, they found a paradise-like space, filled with futuristic furniture, including refrigerators and freezers. Tandy even found some frozen pizza he couldn't wait to eat. There were also functional toilets. Without much debate or voting, they decided to stay in the building. The next morning, everyone woke up, except for Tandy, who had been playing with a toy car all night. He informed his friends that he had explored the entire building, which had 5 floors. He suggested that everyone should occupy the vacant floors. Erica took the 2nd floor, Lewis the 3rd, and Gail the 4th. Initially, Todd wanted to join Gail, but she refused, so Todd and Melissa chose another floor together. Once the floors were chosen, they began using the building's electricity. Todd heated up pizza, while Gail made juice from the office supplies. However, just as the pizza was about to be ready, the power suddenly went out. The next day, Tandy looked for the building's power source to fix the electricity, while Todd used the building's water alarm system as a shower. While Todd was showering, Gail approached him to clarify things. She didn't want any issues with anyone, so she decided to end her relationship with Todd. Without saying much, she bid him farewell. When Tandy managed to fix the electricity, everyone suddenly heard something fall, which almost hit Carol. Tandy quickly secured Carol and tried to figure out who did it. Finding a wrench as evidence, Tandy immediately suspected Lewis and interrogated him. Lewis denied any involvement. The scene shifted to Todd, who, after breaking up with Gail, went to Melissa to talk about what had happened. Initially, Melissa was indifferent, but seeing Todd's sad face, she sympathized and agreed to be with him again, even ready to have a child together. This news cheered Todd up. Tandy's suspicions of Lewis didn't stop there. One night, while Lewis was using the bathroom, Tandy suddenly appeared, startling Lewis. Lewis, confused, told Tandy to leave. The next day, while Tandy and Todd were using the water alarm system to shower, the water suddenly stopped. Tandy immediately knew who was responsible and went to confront Lewis, still wrapped in a towel. Lewis again denied any wrongdoing. Eventually, Carol confessed that she had done it. She admitted to causing the disruptions because she didn't feel the building was their home and wanted everyone to leave. Tandy apologized and promised to create a comfortable place for Carol. Feeling guilty for her actions, Carol requested to be punished. She was mockingly sentenced to beheaded. During the mock execution, Tandy gave Carol a small model of her dream house. Tandy wanted to apologize to Lewis for having suspected him and to mend their friendship. To do so, he decided to create a song based on Lewis's love story. Lewis shared that his girlfriend's zodiac sign was Pisces. They lived in Seattle, and the last time he saw her was before she flew to Tokyo. After gathering some details, Tandy performed his song, which unfortunately bored Lewis immensely. Despite this, Tandy persisted in following Louis around, trying to win his favor. Meanwhile, Carol was similarly persistent, but her focus was on convincing Gail to be a grandmother to her future children. Gail, enjoying her ice cream, firmly refused. Back with Tandy, he eventually discovered what Louis's girlfriend looked like. He told Louis he had a small surprise for him. However, Louis, who already knew what Tandy was up to, insisted he would never return to Seattle and shut the door on him. Tandy's repeated attempts to approach Louis were met with rejection, even when Carol tried to help. Ultimately, Tandy resorted to using a stun gun to incapacitate Louis and take him on a trip against his will. During the journey, Louis lamented that Tandy shouldn't have done this, as he was convinced his boyfriend, Mark, was dead. Tandy argued that miracles happen, citing his own reunion with a sibling he thought was dead. After a long trip, they arrived at Louis's former home. Tandy encouraged Louis to leave a note for Mark, hoping he might read it. Entering the house, Louis was flooded with memories of Mark as he saw their photos together. While Louis was lost in his emotions, Tandy suddenly appeared, much to Louis's annoyance, and he asked Tandy to leave. Tandy, however, refused to go. The scene shifted to Carol, who was still trying to persuade Gail to be her children's grandmother. This time, Carol presented a script for a play in which Gail would play her mother. Carol wanted Gail to sign a contract to formalize this arrangement. Gail firmly refused and said something that hurt Carol deeply. The scene then moved to Todd and Melissa, who were discussing having children. Todd, sensing something off about Melissa, declined and pointed out that she had changed. Melissa indeed was acting unpredictably, and after Todd refused to have children, she revealed a large hole she had dug behind a poster. Back with Louis, the next morning, he prepared to return to the Tucson family. Before leaving, Louis followed Tandy's advice and left a note for Mark. They then set off, but Tandy insisted on making one last stop. Carol, in the meantime, continued her relentless campaign to get Gail to sign the contract. Gail, exhausted by Carol's persistence, finally gave in and agreed to be Carol's mother. Tandy's final destination turned out to be Tucson, where he returned to his house to retrieve his last friend, a volleyball, after Mike had died from the virus. Tandy left with a heavy heart, still mourning his brother. Louis tried to console Tandy, and they decided to head back together. After officially becoming Gail's daughter, Carol immediately dressed up in an outfit she had designed for a family photo and invited Gail for the picture. She also included Tandy, who wore the same outfit. However, Gail declined, finding Carol's attire strange. When Gail left, Tandy and Carol stayed in their little house. Shortly after, they had a visitor. Louis came by to thank Tandy. He expressed gratitude for Tandy's efforts, which had motivated him. Tandy hugged Louis and encouraged him to stay positive. The scene then shifted to Todd, who tried to reconnect with Melissa. However, Melissa became increasingly strange. She acted as though she was carrying a baby, and when Todd tried to joke with her, she admitted the baby wasn't real but continued talking to it. Melissa then told Todd that if he wasn't going to give her a child, he should leave. Confused by Melissa's behavior, Todd decided to walk away. Meanwhile, Louis went to the airport to find a plane. Back to the family scene, Carol and Tandy didn't give up on convincing Gail to take a family photo. This time, they dressed in the same style as Gail. Despite wearing matching outfits, Gail still refused to participate, keeping her eyes closed when Tandy took the picture. She eventually slipped away and entered an elevator. Louis, on the other hand, found a plane and was seen flying it. However, mid-flight, he lost control and the plane crashed. It turned out the plane was a simulator that Louis was using to practice flying. The scene then shifted back to Todd, who shared Melissa's odd behavior with Tandy. He noted that Melissa was very different from when he first met her. Curious, Tandy approached Melissa, who indeed had changed. She suddenly asked Tandy to take off his pants and make a baby with her. Tandy, respecting his friendship with Todd, refused, and Melissa angrily drove him away. Wanting to escape Carol's constant antics, Gail decided to leave the building. She took some drinks from the supermarket and went to a quiet, neighboring building. Gail took an elevator to reach the top floor to relax. However, as soon as she reached the 5th floor, the elevator suddenly stopped and the power went out, similar to the outage at Tandy's building. But unlike Gale, the power at Tandy's building was restored thanks to Lewis's help. Gale, now trapped in the elevator, played her accordion, hoping someone would come to rescue her. At this moment, everyone was shocked by a note in Melissa's room that read "Goodbye," indicating that Melissa had decided to live alone and distance herself from the group. Worried about Melissa's condition, Todd insisted on searching for her everywhere, vowing not to return until he found her. The search began while Gale continued to wait for a miracle to rescue her. As she was lost in thought, Gale suddenly heard a car horn from the vehicle Tandy was driving. She tried to shout and call for help, but Tandy was too far from the building where Gale was trapped. Tandy and Carol then decided to join the search for Melissa, unaware that Gale was missing. Despite searching everywhere, the team couldn't find Melissa. Todd persisted in his search, even when his friends decided to return. Meanwhile, inside the elevator, Gale struggled to open the doors to escape. No matter how hard she tried, the doors wouldn't budge. While Erica and Lewis were creating a map to continue the search for Melissa, Tandy arrived dressed in a dinosaur costume, hoping to scare them. However, Erica and Lewis spotted him immediately and greeted him calmly. Feeling his attempt was a failure, Tandy made small talk about their efforts to find Melissa. As Lewis was explaining, Todd suddenly arrived and was terrified at the sight of Tandy in the dinosaur costume. He screamed and tried to run, but Tandy chased him, making Todd even more frightened. When Todd had nowhere to go, Tandy revealed it was just a costume. Realizing this, Todd felt relieved. They continued their search for Melissa from morning until night, without any success. Exhausted, Todd fell asleep in the cold night air. While Todd slept, Tandy tried to wake him up and suggest they go home. When Tandy finally managed to wake him, Todd again got scared by the dinosaur costume. Once he realized it was just a costume, Todd got into his car and resumed his search for Melissa. The next day, as Todd was cleaning up, Tandy came to comfort him. In the midst of Tandy's consolations, Todd suddenly remembered where Melissa might have gone: a prison uniform shop in Zihuatanejo. He quickly set off for the town to find her. Meanwhile, Gale was still trying to open the elevator doors, using a mannequin head of Gordon to pry them open. Her efforts initially seemed futile as the elevator became more damaged and dark. However, the saying, "effort never betrays results," held true for Gale. After working tirelessly, she managed to open the elevator doors, though she still had to lift the elevator one floor to get out. While the Tucson group searched for Melissa, they checked several shops but found no sign of her until they saw a parked car. They approached the car, raising Gale's hopes as she heard footsteps. She fired a pistol she had, which caught the Tucson group's attention, and they headed towards the building where Gale was trapped. As they were about to enter the building, Melissa suddenly appeared, looking innocent. With Melissa found, they decided not to enter the building. Todd asked why Melissa had fired the gun she was holding. Melissa replied that she hadn't used her gun. Todd then persuaded Melissa to put down her weapon, and they left together. Just before leaving, Tandy felt something was off, convinced the gunshot came from inside. Gale's situation worsened as everyone decided to return to their building, leaving her still trapped in the elevator. Upon Melissa's return home, she was immediately interrogated by everyone. However, Melissa's answers never matched the questions asked, increasing everyone's concern and prompting them to decide to keep her in a locked room with two-way glass for constant observation. Todd, disagreeing with this approach, was convinced that Melissa was still a normal person and promised to stay by her side regardless of her condition. After spending the entire day with Melissa, Todd tucked her into bed and stood guard outside to ensure she didn't leave during the night. But in the morning, Todd woke up to find Melissa's room open and panicked. He approached Erica and Lewis, who were using a flight simulator, to inquire about Melissa's whereabouts. Not wanting to alarm anyone, Todd claimed he knew where Melissa was and assured them she would be fine. Meanwhile, Tandy and Carol organized a special event for themselves, reminiscing about their first meeting with camping gear. This nostalgic setup brought back memories of how Carol and Tandy had first met. After their trip down memory lane, Tandy invited Carol to go fishing, hoping for another magical moment. While Carol fished, Tandy decided to swim. Afterward, Tandy suddenly announced that the fishing line felt heavy, but when he reeled it in, it was just a woman's clothing item of unknown origin. Determined, Tandy dove back into the water. A miracle happened when Carol felt her line grow heavy. Initially suspecting Tandy was behind it, Carol soon realized he wasn't. The weight on the line turned out to be a fish, which they never expected to catch. The scene then shifted to Gail, who captured a robotic vacuum cleaner, hoping to use it to send a message. She wrote a note, but the robot dropped and then swallowed it before continuing on its way, frustrating Gail. In desperation, Gail fired her gun at the elevator ceiling, but the bullet ricocheted and injured her wrist, causing her to bleed. The scene returned to Lewis and Erica informing Todd that Melissa was missing. Todd reassured them she was fine, but their relief was short-lived when they saw Melissa standing at the edge of a building. Fearing she might jump, they rushed to her, pleading with her to step away from the edge. Melissa, seemingly unaware of her actions, was eventually coaxed down by Todd, who then took her for a walk. Meanwhile, Tandy and Carol were thrilled with their big catch. Carol, guessing the fish was female, named it Gail, missing the real Gail after their previous conflict. Back with Todd and Melissa, instead of a walk, Todd placed Melissa in a specially designed room. After ensuring she was settled, Todd locked the door and cried outside, heartbroken by Melissa's treatment. That night, as Tandy and Carol checked on their fish, they found it lifeless on the ground. Tandy tried various methods to revive it, including mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but the fish was declared dead. Tandy prepared a proper burial, but just as he was about to bury it, the fish started moving again, bringing immense joy to Tandy and Carol. In a different building, Gail had resigned herself to her fate, convinced she would die there. Todd, on the other hand, continued to cry over Melissa, who repeatedly begged him to unlock her door. Refusing to repeat past mistakes, Todd did not comply. Meanwhile, Erica and Lewis enjoyed their flight simulator game, oblivious to the chaos around them. Tandy and Carol, satisfied with their camping experience, decided to rejoin the group, concluding another day in their unpredictable lives. The scene in this episode is somewhat different, as it flashes back to the initial outbreak of the virus that spread worldwide. It begins with an event attended by several important American officials. They are gathered, chatting, and giving speeches. However, the situation changes abruptly when one of them suddenly starts coughing up blood, has a nosebleed, and collapses. Initially, Pamela, the woman giving a speech, thinks it's a joke. However, the next day, while driving, she notices everyone wearing masks. Interestingly, this series depicts a virus spreading in 2020, while COVID-19 also emerged globally in 2020. Is this a conspiracy? Moving on, fearing that the virus might infect her, Pamela immediately closes the partition between her and her driver, especially after seeing her driver coughing. When she arrives home, Pamela recounts what she witnessed and suggests to her husband that they initiate vaccinations. However, Pamela's husband refuses, believing that humans no longer need vaccines. As days pass, the virus ravages America, leading to the closure of all stores and the disappearance of people from the streets. Needing food supplies, Pamela decides to go to the supermarket. There, she unexpectedly meets Catherine, the one person she frequently talks about, envies, and hates. They make small talk about their respective conditions before Pamela leaves, and Catherine is seen eating dog food. The next morning, Pamela wakes up to find her husband, Benjamin, missing but discovers bloodstains on his pillow. Worried, she searches and finds Benjamin in an isolation room. Benjamin urges Pamela to stay away from him to avoid infection. Initially, Pamela refuses because she doesn't want Benjamin to suffer alone, but she eventually leaves him for her own safety. Pamela then goes to Catherine's house, only to find her dead. She takes Catherine's house keys from the basement and starts living there with her small dog, the only companion she has left. However, having only the dog for company doesn't help Pamela. After 2 years, she becomes bored and begins hallucinating, trying to make her dog talk to have a friend, but to no avail. One day, after cleaning herself, Pamela finds her dress torn and some items broken. Believing her dog is responsible, she angrily drives it away, and the dog never returns. Now completely alone, Pamela becomes increasingly lonely, stressed, and frustrated. The house falls into disrepair as she can't manage it. Her days are consumed by drinking alcohol, eating, and daydreaming. Since the high-tech bunker that belonged to Christine has an advanced system, Pamela tries to locate other humans using a drone. While flying the drone over Malibu, she spots someone reading a book who turns out to be Gail. This reveals that the drone Gail found earlier did not belong to Pat. Pamela attempts to communicate with Gail and the others, but when she sees the sign they write, her drone suddenly malfunctions and disappears. Determined, Pamela decides to leave the bunker and go to Malibu to find Gail and the others. Finally, we return to the Tucson family, who are increasingly worried about Melissa's condition. However, everyone is confident that Melissa can still recover. One by one, they try to communicate with her, but they are met only with mockery from Melissa. Eventually, they all give up as Melissa refuses to open up. After this method fails, Carol and Erica start researching possible mental health issues that Melissa might be experiencing. Meanwhile, Todd successfully installs a surveillance camera to better monitor Melissa's movements. The scene then shifts to Tandy visiting Lewis, who is practicing on a flight simulator. Tandy explains that he has something special for Lewis that will make him happy. He then takes Lewis to an airport, where Tandy presents him with a real airplane. Seeing a real plane, Lewis is reluctant to accept it, as he feels unprepared and has only practiced on a simulator. He doesn't want to risk flying a real plane. However, Tandy tries to convince Lewis that he is now skilled enough to fly. With Melissa sick and Erica and Carol busy researching her condition, and Todd faithfully staying by Melissa's side, the situation is dire. Hearing this, Lewis eventually agrees to learn to fly the actual plane. When Tandy announces that Lewis will be flying the plane, everyone gets excited, hoping that Lewis will discover something beneficial for them. The next day, Carol creates a newspaper featuring Lewis the pilot. After rigorous practice, Lewis finally flies the plane, and everyone cheers as he successfully takes off. However, the flight doesn't last long. After just a few miles, the plane plummets to the ground and explodes. Lewis is declared dead, and the Tucson family is devastated by the loss of their new friend. The funeral is an emotional affair, with several people offering their praises for Lewis. After his death, Tandy feels increasingly lonely since he no longer has a male friend besides Todd, who is preoccupied with caring for Melissa. In his loneliness, Tandy goes to a church wearing his dinosaur costume and starts talking to God. He prays for guidance to lead his friends. Suddenly, Tandy receives an idea and decides to put it into action. He prepares an elaborate plan to attract everyone's interest. When the others see Tandy's creation, it turns out to be a light show forming a rainbow. Tandy explains that he created this show to honor Lewis's memory. However, finding it uninteresting, everyone decides to ignore Tandy's efforts. The scene begins with someone struggling up a staircase, step by step, and passing through several buildings. It turns out to be Gail, who has finally escaped after being trapped in the elevator for so long. When Gail arrives, the first person she encounters is Tandy. However, Tandy doesn't show any suspicion about Gail, who has been missing for a while. He assumes Gail is just exhausted from being alone in Napa, as she had planned. Tandy then directs Gail to the dining room where everyone is gathered. Upon entering, Gail is warmly welcomed by Erica and Carol. However, after taking just a few steps, Gail suddenly collapses, prompting everyone to rush to her aid, including Tandy, who tries to give her some water. Once Gail regains consciousness, she explains that she didn't go to Napa but was instead trapped in the elevator of the neighboring building for 10 days. She reveals that the injury on her knee was self-inflicted out of frustration when she fired her gun, and the bullet ricocheted back at her. Feeling sympathetic and concerned, Erica and Carol take care of Gail, with Carol even offering her own place for Gail to rest. The scene then shifts to Tandy, who decides to play a game of bowling in the living room. While Tandy is enjoying himself, Todd arrives and announces that he has figured out Melissa's problem. He has discovered that Melissa's hometown is a place called Akron, and Todd believes the only way to help Melissa is to take her there. Tandy agrees, thinking it's a good idea, and they immediately set off for Melissa's birthplace in Akron. Arriving there at night, Tandy and Todd begin searching for clues about Melissa's home. However, they mistakenly end up at the house of an African-American family, thinking it was Melissa's family. When Todd asks Melissa to help find her actual home, she locks herself in a room and goes to sleep. The next morning, Todd wakes up Tandy in a panic. saying that Melissa is missing. They frantically search around Akron for her. On the street, they spot a large billboard with Melissa's face on it. Thanks to this billboard, they finally locate Melissa's real house after searching through the office where she used to work. After obtaining several addresses, they quickly go there and find Melissa sound asleep in her old bedroom. The scene then shifts to Gail, who apologizes to Carol for her previous behavior and for being indifferent to her child. She confesses that while she was trapped in the elevator, she constantly thought about Carol, every gesture and every smile Carol gave. Gail admits that she now realizes Carol is someone she wants to be part of her family. Carol is overjoyed to hear that Gail finally sees her as a daughter. Carol quickly gets the idea to use the costume she once made for Gail for a family photo. Before the scene transitions back to Tandy and Todd, they express amazement at discovering that Melissa was a highly successful career woman, capable of doing various jobs, including skydiving and office work. While they are discussing Melissa, she unexpectedly comes down dressed exactly as she appeared on the billboard. Melissa greets Tandy and Todd and takes a pill, though she doesn't know its purpose. Realizing that Melissa hasn't fully returned to her normal self, Todd decides to take her back to the Tucson family. Meanwhile, Carol fulfills her dream of taking a family photo with Gail in the custom-made outfit. After setting up the camera, she embraces Gail, and they take a photo like mother and daughter. After the photo session, Carol quickly begins to sort through the pictures. However, her expression changes dramatically when she notices something disturbing. As she edits the family photos, she suddenly sees a creepy figure standing behind them. After noticing the strange figure in her family photos with Gail, Carol quickly gathers everyone and announces that she has seen a figure she believes is Yoda, a fictional character from Star Wars. Everyone is shocked and can't believe they might encounter such a creature. However, Tandy dismisses it as just a small tree among the bushes. His skepticism is silenced when Carol shows the photos, revealing the figure moving in each shot. With clear evidence of the mysterious figure, Carol, Tandy, and Erica quickly head to the spot where Carol and Gail had taken the photo. Disguised, Tandy leads the surveillance operation. While observing, Erica spots a house at the edge of the forest, which Tandy assumes is where Yoda resides. They proceed to raid the house, finding several cans of drinks, snacks, and children's toys. This convinces them that Yoda is actually a child. Carol discovers a drawing depicting her and Tandy fishing, leading her to believe the child has been watching them for some time. Despite several attempts to lure the child out of hiding, Tandy's efforts prove futile. He devises another plan, asking Erica and Carol to leave while loudly announcing their departure. On their way home, Tandy suddenly jumps out of the car, asking Carol to take over driving. His secret plan is to stay behind and observe, search, and bring the child back. Meanwhile, Todd helps Gail retrieve her accordion from the elevator. Inside, he is disturbed by the sight of blood stains, scattered bullets, and shattered glass. He quickly retrieves the accordion and also brings Gail's doll, Gordon, to keep her company. Back with Tandy, he tirelessly searches for the mysterious child from morning until night, shouting in the forest without success. Exhausted, he falls asleep in the quiet of the night. The next morning, Erica and Carol arrive with food for the child. However, Tandy instructs Carol to discard it, hoping it is unappealing, as he believes the child does not deserve their help. Carol is hurt by Tandy's words and leaves, while Erica expresses her anger at him. With no results, Tandy decides to go home. On the way back, he apologizes to Carol for his remarks and begins discussing the mysterious child. Suddenly, the creature from the family photo appears in the back of the car. When Tandy reaches for a lemon, he is startled by its presence and screams, causing everyone to panic. The encounter between the Tucson family and the mysterious child brings a sense of joy to the house. Initially, the child refuses to remove the Yoda mask. It isn't until Erica offers pizza that the child reveals his face, though he still remains silent despite others' attempts to communicate. Since the child won't share his name, everyone starts guessing. Gail suggests Smeagol, Carol guesses Daphne, and Tandy, noticing a Jansport label on the child's backpack, suggests the name Jansport. Eventually, they decide to call him Jasper. Tandy eagerly tries to bond with Jasper, starting with giving him a margarita pool, but Jasper remains indifferent. Even when Tandy offers his best friend, Gary, the volleyball, Jasper throws it away, resulting in Gary being run over by Erica's car. Determined to fix Gary, Tandy uses duct tape to patch him up and inflate him again. Carol advises Tandy on how to approach Jasper gently, suggesting techniques she saw in a movie. Tandy soon finds Jasper with a pack of cigarettes and, attempting to enforce rules, takes them away. Jasper leaves, but Tandy returns the cigarettes on the condition that Jasper follows his rules. During dinner, Tandy introduces the new, more obedient Jasper to everyone, demonstrating his compliance by having Jasper unfold his napkin and give Gale a kiss when complimented. However, the compliments turn to criticism when Carol notices a pile of cigarettes on Jasper's chair, revealing that Tandy had been bribing him with cigarettes. This leads to Jasper being separated from Tandy. In a meeting, everyone votes on who will be Jasper's guardian. Tandy confidently expects to be chosen, offering Jasper a cigarette as a bribe, but Gale exposes his tactic. Consequently, Tandy is disqualified, and Jasper chooses Erica as his caretaker. Jasper seems happy with Erica, and Tandy, as a consolation, gives Erica a giant olive as a gift. Erica asks Tandy to say goodnight to Jasper, who is fast asleep, and Tandy retrieves Gary from Jasper's grasp. The scene shifts to Jasper watching an adult video, which Carol quickly stops by taking the device away. The incident causes a commotion, and Tandy retrieves the device, warning Jasper not to repeat the behavior. Later, Tandy continues watching the video himself. The next day, the group discusses Jasper's happiness, speculating that his behavior stems from losing his parents and friends, making him a quiet child. Carol suggests creating a special event for Jasper, combining Christmas, Easter, and Halloween. Everyone agrees, especially Todd, who believes it might help Melissa, whose condition is worsening. Tandy, however, opposes involving Melissa, fearing she might negatively influence Jasper. Todd promises they will become close friends, convincing Tandy to agree. Todd tries to prove Melissa can bond with Jasper by organizing a fun camping trip across from where Jasper plays. Meanwhile, Erica, Carol, and Gale shop for the event. At night, Jasper hears noise from the living room and goes to investigate. He finds Tandy and Carol welcoming him to a grand event created just for him. Jasper, initially confused, enters to find beautifully decorated attractions and everyone celebrating his arrival. In contrast, Todd, who can't attend due to caring for Melissa, dances with his Bluetooth speaker but becomes annoyed by the noise. Frustrated, he disrupts the party by shouting. Tandy, angered by Todd's interruption, challenges him to a fight, which Todd accepts. Outside, their fight begins with Tandy attacking Todd, but Todd quickly overpowers him. Before Todd can strike again, they are interrupted by the sound of police sirens. Everyone rushes to the source and finds Jasper laughing with Melissa. Tandy, who initially thought Melissa would negatively influence Jasper, sees she is the only one who can make him laugh. This warm moment prompts Tandy and Todd to apologize and hug. Suddenly, they all witness a falling star, only to realize it's a human satellite crashing back to Earth, destroying a building upon impact. Jasper speaks for the first time, even loudly responding to Tandy calling him. Hearing Jasper's voice makes Tandy very happy, and he immediately begins teaching Jasper some things and prepares him for an upcoming big event. Once preparations are complete, the big event begins. It turns out that this is the day Todd and Melissa decide to get married. With a modest setup and Carol and Erica as Melissa's bridesmaids, the ceremony goes smoothly without any issues. After their vows, Tandy takes the initiative to provide a symbolic gesture for their wedding. Since doves are extinct, he releases crickets instead, causing everyone to panic and scatter. After the wedding ceremony, they hold a party that night to celebrate Todd and Melissa's marriage. The new couple looks very happy on their wedding day, and everyone else shares in their joy, especially as they finally hear Jasper's voice, revealing more of his personality. During the festivities, Tandy suddenly asks for everyone's attention to say something. Once the room quiets down, Tandy announces that his parents always wanted to see their children help their wives give birth, implying that he wants to be Carol's doctor during childbirth. Out of respect for Tandy, everyone toasts and continues the celebration. After the event, Carol tells Tandy she only wants Gale to be her doctor. It's not that she doesn't trust Tandy or his parents' abilities. She just wants to ensure her and their unborn child's safety. Carol also mentions that she has already discussed this with Gale. Hearing this, Tandy becomes very angry and confronts Gale, who is reading a health magazine. With a menacing look, he warns Gale that he will be the one to deliver his child. Gale calmly responds that it is ultimately Carol's decision. Determined to prove himself, Tandy declares he will show everyone he is capable of being the doctor. He then retreats, still glaring at Gale. Tandy gathers everyone, even interrupting Todd and Melissa's first night together, and explains that he will demonstrate his baby-catching skills. With Carol's help, Tandy practices catching baby dolls launched from a machine. Although he catches a few dolls, it's not enough to convince everyone he is qualified to assist in childbirth. Not giving up, Tandy then demonstrates a delivery process using gelatin. He extracts a baby doll from the gelatin, but his method disturbs everyone. Unable to win their confidence, Tandy finally gives up and agrees to let Gale handle Carol's delivery. Feeling sorry for Tandy, Gale explains that she can't do it alone and suggests that Tandy could be her co-pilot. This renews Tandy's hope, and he happily accepts the role. Gale then mentions that Todd might also be chosen, but he would need a flight attendant, a role that would suit Tandy. Eager to be involved, Tandy accepts this position as well. While they are talking, Erica suddenly approaches them, looking panicked, and announces that her amniotic fluid has broken. After learning that Erica is about to give birth, Gale immediately initiates the first procedures. She calls Todd and prepares the room to ensure Erica can deliver in comfort. Drawing on her knowledge from the books she has read, Gale calms Erica, reassuring her that everything will be fine. Seeing Erica in pain and distress, Carol, who will soon go through the same phase, becomes very frightened and decides to retreat to her room. Meanwhile, Tandy, acting as the flight attendant, helps prepare the equipment that Todd and Gale will use. To make Erica more comfortable, Todd suggests playing some music. However, Tandy's choice of a death-themed song makes Erica uncomfortable, prompting her to ask him to stop. Melissa and Jasper visit Carol to comfort her, knowing that she is currently overwhelmed with fear, especially as she can hear Erica's continuous screams of pain. To mask Erica's screams, Carol plays a CD of laughing sounds. Melissa tries to reassure Carol by telling her that everything will be all right and that Erica and her baby will be healthy with Gale's help. They then decide to leave for a while, asking Carol to stay put. Back in Erica's delivery room, the situation becomes tense as Erica continues to moan in pain, unable to bear the intensity of childbirth. Gale tries to encourage Erica and keep her calm, assuring her that she can get through this. However, at one point, Erica loses consciousness. Seeing Erica pass out, Gale and Todd start to panic. Todd searches for a way to revive Erica, while Carol, watching Erica unconscious, becomes even more terrified of giving birth. Shortly after, Erica regains consciousness, and everyone encourages her. As Erica focuses on her breathing, Todd and Gale discuss the methods they will use to assist with the delivery. The scene then shifts to Tandy, who chooses to accompany Jasper to the playground. While playing on a slide, Jasper expresses sadness, thinking Erica might die. Tandy explains to Jasper that Erica is not dying but performing a noble task to help maintain the human population, and that he will soon have a baby sister. Understanding this, Jasper feels better, and they continue to enjoy the slide. As they climb the slide's ladder, Tandy and Jasper notice smoke billowing from a factory. Meanwhile, Erica, aided by Gale, Todd, Melissa, and Carol, who has overcome her fears to assist with Erica's delivery, continues to struggle through childbirth. After a significant effort, Gale successfully delivers Erica's baby, a beautiful and healthy girl. Erica immediately embraces her newborn, and everyone is overjoyed, especially Todd, who feels deeply moved by being able to help with the delivery. In the midst of the celebrations, Tandy and Jasper decide to investigate the source of the smoke, which turns out to be coming from a nuclear plant. After realizing that the smoke was coming from a nuclear facility, Tandy and Jasper immediately rush to inform everyone. Ignoring the joyful atmosphere celebrating Erica's baby's arrival, Tandy announced there was something more critical to worry about. He urged everyone to see the smoke for themselves. When they did, Gail tried to verify Tandy's assertion that it originated from a nuclear facility. Tandy swore he was certain about the source of the smoke. Given the seriousness of Tandy's claim, they quickly held a meeting to discuss relocating to a safer place to protect Erica's newborn and Carol's unborn baby. They decided to head to Mexico, the nearest safe destination. They gathered all their belongings, including the house where Carol was sleeping, and set off to distance themselves from the nuclear smoke. The journey progressed swiftly, and they were just 72 miles from their destination. Everyone appeared happy, especially Todd and Melissa, since Mexico was a setting in their favorite film, The Shawshank Redemption. However, as they approached their destination, their safety detector indicated they were heading into danger. Unwilling to take risks, they turned back and discussed alternative shelter options. After a lengthy debate among Gail, Tandy, Todd, and Erica, they decided to return to Los Angeles. Some worried about the possibility of Pat finding them, but Tandy reassured them that Los Angeles was vast, making it unlikely for Pat to locate them. The bus driver then headed toward Los Angeles. The journey to Los Angeles was smooth until disaster struck. Their mobile home caught fire without anyone noticing. The danger multiplied when Pat, who was still alive, tracked the Tucson family's route thanks to the smoke from their burning mobile home. Upon arriving in Los Angeles, they were shocked to find their mobile home completely destroyed. With no place to stay, they decided to board a yacht to find another location. As they boarded, everyone urged Tandy to depart immediately. However, Tandy delayed their departure to ensure the journey would be safe. Meanwhile, Pat's movements remained undetected but were closing in. Once Tandy confirmed their journey would be safe, he prepared to start the boat. But just as Tandy took the helm, their worst fears materialized. Pat suddenly appeared from behind, armed with a rifle. Pat greeted everyone and began threatening the Tucson family's safety. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, Pat was shot dead by someone from behind. As Pat lay lifeless on the ground, it was revealed that his killer was Pamela, the woman controlling the drone that Melissa had previously damaged.